Hey guys, so several people were asking me about this trigger on this pistol, and I figured I'd make a video on it. Um, this is a stock weapon internally, except for I did polish the trigger bar and some of the firing assembly inside of there. And I have to say, from the factory, this says, it's comparable to like a Gen 5 Glock, although this is a Gen 4 clone. That being said, I found that the majority of the issues that anybody could find, granted, same caveat as every other video with a gun, we're splitting hairs here. All this and Glocks and any other carry weapon, I mean, they're fine pistols. It's hard to buy a bad one these days. But if we're gonna split the hairs and we're gonna talk about the grit and the half a pound here and the half a pound there, I found the majority of the grit in the stock trigger was right here, right there in the trigger safety. Once I removed that and put this Timney Alpha face on here, the actual trigger face itself is so much better. Just simply because it's an anodized surface, so it's just smoother. And there's really, that's really all there is to it. Now, as far as the pistol goes on the inside, you don't even really have to take the slide apart to do the polish job here. This trigger is a little bit different than a typical Glock setup. So I polished the tip of the sear safety here, and that was probably the easiest part on this whole thing to do. It took 3 seconds. You polish the tip of the claw, or it's what I call it, is the claw, in the firing pin base here, and then you polish these two surfaces inside of here. I don't know if you guys can see that real well, but down inside of there, you polish down in there, those two faces rub together. You polish the top of the crucifix here, and then you polish the top right here. The only thing you need to take apart is you got to take this bar out to polish down in here, and you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it does help. Other than that, there's stock springs in here. This is the stock bar that came with it. This is not the Timney Alpha setup. This is the same block and everything that came in it. Their locking block is a little bit different, but not by much. It has the same slide stop as well. The reason that I chose to put this Timney Alpha face on here was solely because it has an adjustable take up on here. So that's really the smoothness, the polish job, all that helps. You're splitting hairs, trying to get a finer and finer setup. However, when it all comes down to it, you look at the pull, the take up here, you can take most of it out. Now, typically, this portion of the trigger would be where this tip of the safety is on the trigger safety. But as you can see, it's further back than that. And it's actually, if you look at this nub right here where they did the cuts, the relief cuts underneath the bottom of the trigger well, the break point is right here on this line. And so you can see that it's kind of ahead of it a little bit. There is some take up in that trigger. Your wall is right there. So there's some take up in that trigger, and that means that the trigger safety still functions as should be. But once you get right there, there's a slight pull right there. There's that little bump right there, and then the wall breaks. And then on the reset, it's going to reset to that exact same point right there, and that's the wall. So it's very minimal take up on that trigger before you have your break. And that, to me, for a duty pistol, for something that I'm carrying every day, this is why we clear our weapons before we do anything with them. For something that I carry with me every day that's going to get, tossed around, right? Something that's going to get bumped. That is exactly what I want. That is reliable, it is repeatable, it is consistent, and it is sturdy enough that I am going to be able to, when I do finally decide that to make that decision to pull that trigger, it is a deliberate action. And I don't have to worry about it going off a little bit earlier than I wanted it to because it was too light or there was too much take up pulled out of it or whatever. It's an absolutely awesome setup, and it's, you know, it is a flat face trigger. The one that comes with it is a hybrid. It's not a curved trigger and it's not a flat trigger. It's kind of in between, kind of like how your standard 5th gen Glocks are. But yeah, so as far as stock internals, I mean, I got $90 in this trigger face right here, and just 15 minutes of my time in a polish job, and this is the best duty trigger I've ever felt. So absolutely awesome setup here. And some of you guys were wondering too about, I had made a post on Instagram and I was talking about how this is the versatile, you know, it's a house gun, it's a truck gun, it's a carry gun, it's all that. And they were talking about how, you know, how exactly is one gun going to do all of those tasks. And the idea is that this is the pistol I carry on me all the time. So sometimes I'm putting it in the console of the truck. Sometimes I'm putting it in my safe in my house next to my bed. Sometimes I'm putting it in my pants. Sometimes I'm putting it in a jacket. Sometimes I'm putting it in a backpack, overalls, you name it. This is going with me everywhere. So the idea is, you know, you have these extended 19 round Glock magazines, the 19X mag, and I do prefer the actual Glock magazine, the 19X magazine, over a like say like a PMAG like this right here, right? This is something that I would put on me if I was going to carry, and I do a little stipple job on the bottom for grip. But you know, if I'm concealing this weapon, we're gonna be careful here. But you know, if I want that flush fit deal, I can slide my light off and I have something that I can carry. I've got a short 4-inch barrel and a 4-inch grip, and I can tuck that down in my pants, or I could put that in my backpack or wherever, you know. And then if I decided I wanted to, you know, outside the waistband carry, or I'm putting it in a backpack or the truck or whatever, you know, inside the house, I've got 19+1 in this setup, and you can just stick your Surefire X300 Ultra on there, and you've got 1,000 lumens at the touch of a button, and that RMR just does not fail you on any of those applications. So that's my answer to that question. Is it's just real quick. It's just a simple magazine swap, and occasionally you take the light off. But for the most part, she rides just like this, and unless I'm concealing. And so that's why I chose this system. That's why I chose this setup. This is honestly, this is the best pistol I've ever owned, and I've owned quite a few. So for me, you know, if you want something that you can guarantee you're going to be the one that goes home at night, this is the setup right here. But I just wanted to answer that trigger question for those guys. And I would say, you know, if I had to go back and buy the $90 Timney face again, would I? Yes, only because, like I stated before, is this part right here with the actual trigger safety. It just, there's no grit there. If you compare that to the stock trigger and you're feeling all that grit and that take up, I found 90% of it came out of that. So that's it. As far as oiling the weapon goes, you know, I use dry lubricants only whenever I'm actually carrying the gun. I only use wet lubricants in storage, except for, there's one exception to that rule. There is one place that I do, or two places that I do put wet oil. You need 1 drop of the Lucas Extreme Duty gun oil right here, right where those two faces rub together. That's one of the best places you could put them. You can put a little dab here too if you wanted to, but you need it. You're gonna get bleed off here from where you put it on the slide. So I stick 1 drop right here. I put 1 drop right here for that plunger, and I actuate that plunger on that safety, and I put a drop right here. And for those 3 drops right there, I let those soak in. I run the gun a little bit, you know, just put it together, cycle it a few times, and you're good to go. And I had a couple of comments about the dry fire thing. Striker fire guns, you can dry fire them all you want to. And if you don't think you can, then that's fine. You take care of your weapons how you please. But you know, all those years of working for firearms manufacturers as a machinist and dealing with all of these little metal parts, I learned that these things are good, you know, for 50 to 75,000 rounds before you need to start having anybody take a look at those parts. So dry fire all you want, test it, pull the trigger, get used to it, train. As always, train. If you don't train, then it doesn't matter how much money you spend on gear, you're going to die anyway. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one.